just have in the chat if everyone just say hi and if they can hear us. Okay, Sam, you're saying you can't hear very well. Is it getting any better? We are now apparently live streaming on YouTube. Gosh, never has my life been so exciting. Oh, someone's trying to share their screen though, I think. Is that right? No? Oh, very well. Oh, it's Alison speaking. Right, okay, I'm just going to check who we've got. So 19 people. Hi to oh, we have got Dan. Dan, you're there. Dan.
Of course.
Oh, fantastic.
Nowhere else to be.
Oh, I hope you. I was just getting a mild panic that we've done a little roll call, but we're missing you. And I don't know if it's because I didn't send you the password, so I hope it wasn't that. Welcome. Well, we've got on here 21 people. If we give it maybe 2 or 3 more minutes and then crack on, is that okay with you? And yeah, you are okay to share your screen, Dan, with whatever you need as well.
Awesome.
Excellent, fantastic. Okie dokie, wonderful. Just looking at the number, instead of gaining people, we've lost one. But that's great. It's always what's the word? Occupational hazard. Fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone. Hi, Clary, Tracy, Lily. It's going too quick for me now. Rachel, hi, it's great to see you. Fantastic. And this is just really exciting to have. I did start tweeting hashtag bridging the north-south divide, but it's a bit sensitive at the moment. I wasn't sure if people would take offense, but I feel like we're doing that in a very positive way tonight. So thank you, Charlotte, as well. As I've already said, thank you so much. Everybody, fantastic. David, you've made it as well, I think, on there, which is fantastic too. Brilliant. Okay. We're still circling at about 20 people, so I think we'll give it literally 1 more minute and we're just going to crack on and begin proceedings because we want to be quite tight on time and everything. So in the chat, we're just at the moment just saying hi Brendan, hi. Oh, Tracy, how yes, so I see, from the north to the south. You are truly bridging the gap, truly doing it. Fantastic, brilliant. Okay, let me move that out the way. Dan, do you want to start? Oh, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll do our screen now. I will, before you share your screen, I'm just going to put this on and share my, there we go. Oh, what have I done? I don't use Zoom very often, and so I'm really sorry if it's not very seamless. Right, am I sharing my screen with the running order?
Not yet.
Not yet, no. Is it there now?
Yes.
Got it.
Fantastic. Right, I'm going to crack on. I'm going to say a proper welcome to everybody on our first inaugural North-South event connecting East London and Sheffield. Very exciting, and my first ever time live streaming on YouTube. I've achieved my life goal of being a YouTuber. This is our running order at the moment. I think most of us are there. I think we're ready to go. I think someone might have their mic on though, because I can hear my dulcet tones echoing around. So if we could just make sure mics are muted, that'd be really helpful. Thank you so much. So I'll introduce myself. Most people, I think I know most of you, and it's great to see so many familiar faces and names. I'm Denise from East London. I kind of feel a bit of a fraud. We are on the edge of East London, working at a school in Redbridge and heading up the East London Geography Hub. And then my co-host, Tom, say hi.
Hi, Denise. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm bringing the northern element to this evening's North Meet South TeachMeet, as I'm representing the Sheffield GA and our team from there. So really excited to get things going tonight. So I'm going to stop talking there and hand back over and get the show on the road.
And we're going to kick off with wonderful Dan Raven-Ellison. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're very busy and doing far more slick productions with National Geographic. In fact, Dan, I know you'll be pleased to know that I can remind you that we watched your video today in a Year 7 lesson about your sound level recordings. It's a staple video.
I'm sorry about that one. My God.
I know. So I'm seeing you for the second time today, but in real life almost now. Okay, Dan, I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully you should be able to share yours. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Great, wow, it's a pleasure to be with you all. And I apologize if anyone on this call has seen my slides before. I know that some of you have, but I'm going to whiz through. I've been told I've got 10 minutes, and so I'm going to do my best to sort of beat the duck before it quacks. And I'm just going to take you through 3 projects very quickly that I worked on, all relating to guerrilla geography. For those who aren't quite sure what that is, guerrilla geography is radical, alternative, creative, surprising geographies. I hope that you all consider yourself to be guerrilla geographers, at least some of the time. I'm going to go through 3 projects very quickly that I hope you might find interesting or a bit inspiring. The first one, which you may have come across, is really based around land use in the UK, and it's a project called the UK in 100 seconds. So essentially, I was very inspired by the fact that although I'm a geographer and I've traveled the UK extensively, I realized I had no idea what the UK looks like. Essentially, it's just really big and complicated, so it's quite hard to get your head around. And there's been a strong discourse in British politics, in American politics, in Australian politics for a long time around the idea that there's no space in our countries for more people, for migrants or refugees, for affordable housing, for nature, whatever it may be. And that just didn't really make sense to me. And I ran a poll with Friends of the Earth, and we found that 1 in 3 people in the UK roughly think that half of the country is built on. And so I decided to sort of take apart some of the complexity of this Corine, Copernicus, European fantastic data mapping that looks at land use across the country, and made a short film where every second of the film is 1% of what the UK looks like from above. And I'm not going to show the film now. Some of you may have seen it before, but if you search the hashtag UK in 100 seconds, then you can find it and download it. And what it really reveals is that only a fragment of the UK is actually used for housing, whereas about half the country is basically used for milk and cheese. So my takeaway from that is that we're in the middle of an ecological and climate crisis. And I think we've probably got a little bit too much animal-related agriculture in the country. So I'm interested in how this project can work in other contexts. And I'm actually crowdfunding at the moment. You're very welcome to support if you'd like to, a project called UK National Parks in 100 seconds. And this is inspired partially because I really love national parks, but also in the fact that a couple of weeks ago, even maybe a week ago, you may remember Boris Johnson making the announcement that we're going to protect 30% of the UK for nature. So which makes you potentially worried about what's going to happen to the other 70%, because I don't think we should be zoning off things quite like that. But really the claim that 26% of the UK is already protected for nature, 26% of the land, including our AONBs, and that includes our national parks. In reality, triple SIs secure somewhere between 5 and 10%, maybe for nature, but all of us here know that large amounts of our national parks are not really prioritized for nature as a priority. So I want to make this film to positively disrupt some imaginations around the nature of our national parks and show how much greener and wilder and better they could be just by showing the data. And this table shows you what they look like and the diversity across the national parks. So I really like national parks, but another project that I've worked on is around the idea of cities as national parks. So a while ago, I was very lucky to visit all of the UK's inspiring, distinctive, remarkable, beautiful national parks. I believe the Peak District actually has a pretty good tongue or a finger or something like that that finds its way quite far into Sheffield. So you actually have a national park within your urban boundary, which is really cool. But I got thinking about the fact that when you look at national parks around the world, they are every single major type of internationally recognized habitat and landscape, apart from one, which is urban areas. And urban areas are the world's fastest growing internationally recognized type of habitat. And counter to what many people might think, they're quite often more abundant and diverse with life than the countryside that surrounds them. That's certainly the case for both Sheffield and London. In London, we have about 15,000 species of wildlife. We have an abundance of trees and all kinds of fabulous things. So I got thinking about that and asked the question, what if we made London a national park city, which would be a new kind of national park? And really, this is about taking inspiration from what's good about that landscape vision, that landscape approach to thinking about rural areas and saying, hang on a second, what if we think about ways in which we can deliver that as people who live in and produce and create cities as well? So this was a campaign that I led for about 7 years that very large numbers of people supported, including people on this call, so that it actually launched last year. And essentially, inspired by rural national parks, the London National Park City is a place that you can explore, you can improve, you can make better, you can make worse. It's a vision for that city that's both large scale and long term. It's a community of people who want to make life better in that place, all with the common aims around making the city greener, healthier, wilder, and getting more people outdoors more of the time. And crucially, creating a new identity for London and Londoners as well. A new identity for the landscape, but also the people who inhabit that landscape as well, the businesses, the citizens, the people, the non-citizens, and so on. So just quickly to share with you, our theory of change around the London National Park City is really underpinned by a really simple theory of change around 2 questions. I think these 2 questions are 2 beautiful questions to play with young people. The first one is a question around what if, and that takes us into this imaginary space where set to the background of your city, London, Sheffield, Newcastle, Glasgow, Cardiff, Adelaide, wherever it is, set to that context and that idea, what if things were different in your city? And that idea of the National Park City triggers thoughts for me anyway. So I might think, well, what if the canals in London were clean enough that otters could swim in them? What if there were more peregrine falcons in Sheffield than there were in London? What if our streets were 10 times greener? What if there were climbing walls going up the side of our skyscrapers? What if there was vastly more outdoor learning taking place in schools and that was an expectation? And then that then can be followed up with a question, well, why not? And this is where you've got so many people asking what if and dreaming that possibility, that you build up a momentum of people who actually begin to want to assert the fact that they should have that thing. So of course our canals should be clean enough to swim in, and of course there should be more outdoor learning in schools, and of course people shouldn't be building on our parks, and so on. So just some quick examples of that. So firstly, what if we had strategic corridors of hedgehog holes going through our community? And as geographers, one of the things that really frustrates me about all the people doing so much work around hedgehogs at the moment is the complete lack of strategy. And if there's ever a project for a group of geography teachers to get around and students, it would be thinking about all the ways in which you could make a local area super connected for hedgehogs and pollinators and different species. Because ultimately we can all put holes in our fences on this call, but if our neighbours don't put holes in their fences too, then there's no point in those holes being there at all. What if every community closed streets for toads? What if we had far more street art so that culturally having a better relationship with nature was part of the visible identity of our communities? What if we made our streets 10 times greener by putting far more plants out on the streets? What if we embraced ivy rather than thinking that it was a problem? What if we redesigned and retrofitted our streets in every way possible to make them as good as possible for having the best possible relationship with nature? And again, I think in terms of thinking about field sketches and cross sections and ways in which young people can be thinking about tackling the ecological emergency and climate emergency, replicating something like this, I think would be really cool. This is slightly grander. This is an architect firm called WATM that created this fantastic animation, which a year ago, doing this to Fleet Street might have sounded completely fantastical. But in light of COVID and policy changes happening in cities at the moment with new networks taking place, I think feel far more possible. And I love this. I love this idea from Farrell's The Architects, this giant climbing wall at the side of a skyscraper. And other than the fact that it feels like a childhood dream, like why shouldn't we have this on the side of skyscrapers? Why shouldn't we have via ferrata and climbing walls? And so I think reimagining the urban environment in a way that augments national parks in their thinking, their landscape thinking, their way that they organize, the way they're constructed, the types of activities that take place in them, I think is an amazing lens for thinking about the future of cities. So what if, why not? I think that can be played with a lot on different scales. Finally, in my last minute and 9 seconds, just very quickly going to tell you about a project called Slowways that I worked on that was catalyzed by lockdown. So essentially, this was an observation that we have about 200,000 kilometers of public rights of way in the United Kingdom. But the way I kind of see them is they're a bit like a big pile of spaghetti on a plate. Our footpaths, you kind of need to have a GCSE in geography or a DofE qualification to be able to not get lost in the countryside, unlike our roads, which are super well organized. So at the beginning of lockdown, I put a call out and asked if anyone would like to help make a network of walking routes using existing footpaths, and 700 people volunteered. And this is a recent map of what that looks like using these sort of geometric forms and footpaths, creating a network of 7,000 routes connecting 2,500 places. So all the towns and cities in the UK, as well as thousands of villages. And the next challenge is to go out and test them all. And it would be absolutely awesome if any of you wanted to get involved with this Slowways project, to walk, test some routes, maybe even get some young people to think about creating maps for them, whatever you might like. But it's a super common public geography project, and it'd be great for you to be involved. That's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. That's brilliant. I just learned that it's incredibly difficult to run the chat and make notes on everything you're saying as well. It's really, really useful. Thank you so much. And watch this space for some announcements from Tom and I about another project we want to do based on your UK in 100 seconds as well, which I know I've been talking to you about, and we've got some thoughts on that as well. So thank you so very much. If we were in the real world in a room, we'd all be clapping, but a virtual clap to you. So thank you very much. Thank you. And very impressive timekeeping. Fantastic. Sarah and Chris, you are up next. Hopefully you are going to be okay with sharing your screen and everything. Thank you.
Right on, not a problem. Shall I share the screen and Sarah, you can talk over it?
Yeah, that'd be good, Chris. Chris, we're getting a bit of feedback from you though.
Oh geez, yeah, my wonderful. Yeah, my I've tried different headsets. Let me try just unplugging.
Oh, now we can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
You can?
Yeah,
it's not very good.
It's not good. Chris, if you want, just mute yourself and I'll talk. And if you share the screen.
Right on, will do.
Is that all right?
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Apologies for that. Let me just.
Okay, while Chris is doing that, I'll just give you a little bit of context. Chris and I presented at the session in the summer. What we did is we talked about how we were going to use virtual fieldwork, with the NEA being something that was still going to require fieldwork. Obviously now things have changed a little bit with regards to the GCSE and so on, but we actually viewed virtual fieldwork as being something that we could do at the moment to be really powerful with regards to kind of our curriculum and our recovery curriculum particularly. Can I have the next slide, please, Chris? Thank you. So we actually started our Year 7 curriculum with a virtual fieldwork project, which was just a really nice way to give the students a little bit of a baseline assessment for us to see what they could do, but also to get them to engage with the local area and the geography of the local area. I actually just finished doing this with my Year 7s today. They wrote some really excellent kind of evaluations where they were able to kind of comment on things like the methods that they'd use, but also kind of identify a lot of the really valuable aspects of undertaking virtual fieldwork as well. It was great because we were able to make lots of synoptic links to different topics that we're going to look at a later stage, including things like regeneration and gentrification with them as well. So that's something that's worked really, really nicely and has been a really nice introductory project for Key Stage 3, and hopefully something that we're also going to look at kind of moving forward to feed into Year 8 and Year 9 as a way to kind of really engage our students with geography, as obviously it's more difficult to kind of get them out and about at the moment. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. So obviously at Key Stage 4, we've got a bit of an unusual situation with regards to geographical inquiry. I don't know about other people's exam boards, but Edexcel on some training a few weeks ago threw the curveball out to us that was unfamiliar fieldwork is still going to be examined, even though familiar fieldwork isn't going to be examined. This made us think that actually virtual fieldwork's even more important, because in the exam, usually our students do really, really well on their familiar fieldwork because they've been there, they've done it, they know what they're talking about. In reality, when it comes to the unfamiliar fieldwork, that's when they struggle a little bit. So something that Chris particularly has been working on is taking some of those unfamiliar fieldwork questions, the examples where other people are doing the fieldwork and so on, and just really trying to create some situations and some resources where the students are able to kind of access that and work on it in a way that's going to be accessible for them. We focused it mainly around exam questions in order to kind of contextualize those activities, but it's certainly something that we view as very valuable. And also I just think getting the kids to do fieldwork, you want them to do it, you want them to love it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm sorry Chris wasn't presenting because that was the original plan.
No problem at all, no problem. And it's just one of those things at the moment with the technology. It's very, very difficult. Thank you so much. Really good food for thought. And I know that we've just done a very similar thing in terms of using some virtual fieldwork that we did during remote learning and adapting it now as homework in the classroom for Key Stage 3. So Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Keep the questions coming in the chat. And Tom, there seems to be a bit of a challenge to you there to maybe start applying. It only takes 7 years apparently to get Sheffield as a national park city. So you can get on with that, can't you? Keep
we'll get cracking 7 years from now. Rock and roll with it.
We'll see you there. Brilliant. Brendan, are you there and are you okay for running yours? Fantastic. Brendan, thank you so very much to talk to us again about wonders of, I don't know whether is it GIS as well, or is it just gifts?
There'll be a bit of GIS thrown in, definitely.
Oh, brilliant. It's all the G's.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Should I just press play and then retire?
Yeah, and then retire. Yeah, thank you.
I might have to unmute myself for that to work.
Yeah, I'll stay open.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the screen now. Can you see that?
Not
yet. Can you see it now?
It's coming.
How's that look?
Looking good.
You can see it.
We can hear it, but can't hear it yet. See, that's it.
Can you hear that?
No.
No. Do I have to press something to share sound?
No, it's just a problem I was having with it as well. I can play mine on mine, but it's just it was perhaps quiet. Okay, do you want me to try and play it?
Yep, that'd be good. I'll unshare.
Hang on a second. Right, so I'm going to play this, but if people could let me know in the chat whether you can hear it or not. I'll mute myself for the moment. Sorry, was that working? Anyone? No? I'll try it again. Sam, can you give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down? Can you hear it? So I can see Sam on there. No, Tom, no, not working. Oh no, we're having a. Tell you what, we'll move on and then Brendan will try and sort it out. Is that okay? Right, okay. Sorry about that. It worked last time, so I'm determined to get it to work. David, is David Rogers, are you on there? Are you there?
I am indeed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to hand straight over to you without any further ado. So thank you very much, David. Thank you.
Lovely. So quite an elegant title to come up with, and quite linked to sort of Dan's excellent talk that started us off in terms of, are we teaching the same old stuff? And part of this is really because of where we are and what's happening around the world, but also the brilliant Alan Parkinson, and I'm using some pebbles here because I think the pebbles behind him on his Zooms are now world famous, and do look up his post PC geographies. I don't think we're quite post Corona yet. However, there's lots of good ideas kind of in there, and it makes me kind of think, we're teaching geography, which is this dynamic subject that's happening now, and I wonder how many of us have sort of got back and are just teaching the same old units of work, and I know that there's some time that needs invested in that to make it a little bit more accessible, but I thought I'd share some examples of what I do. Now, I lead behaviour these days, and part of that is that I do a lot of walking around the school, which gives me a lot of time to think about this stuff. But for example, year 7, I've always hated the welcome to geography. This is geography, the map reading atlas unit. I personally think it's pants. You might disagree. And so what I do instead, and what I did this year, is kind of my first year 7 group for about, I think, 6 or 7 years. But we actually explored the role of latitude, and we looked at that context and the fact that it's a colonial kind of byproduct of history. Where Greenwich is in terms of longitude, etc. But we looked at latitude and its impact on the planet, and we considered kind of the reality of watching Attenborough and actually the reality of those sort of chosen media images with year 7. It might be a little bit over top the head, but at the end of year 7, these lessons, they've got the idea that latitude influences climate, and also the fact of who decides where these lines go, and that's people at the end of the day. Looking at global systems and governance, this is an activity we've sort of looked at year 13 in terms of, has COVID-19 killed globalization? And actually a lot of the reading that you said is globalization actually was really slowing down quite a bit before COVID. But it's kind of, how do we update ourselves? How do we make sure that we get, you know, the best that we can out of our subjects? And sometimes we really need to kind of rethink about what we are teaching, because geography changes. We don't want it to fossilize. In terms of COVID-19, you know, how has COVID-19 impacted on place? And this is looking at sort of key stage 3 and really kind of thinking about our local areas, because it has had a massive impact on our places and the meaning of place. And the sense of place, and place as location plus meaning, is an idea that year 7s can understand. They can get to grips with that, and they can see these changings happening now. So it's not in terms of geography in the news and knee-jerk and kind of working these things in and shoehorning them, but the fundamental part of our subject is about understanding the place that is around us. And if we aren't responding and if we aren't changing, then perhaps I'm suggesting that we should, because we can look at all sorts of things. This is the first year in which I haven't been overseas, and I've been to Scotland, and that's my dog eating a cow. But also, you know, this branding of Clutie McTootie and McHaddis Toasty, and you know, who is that for, and what's that all about? And actually exploring some of these branding of places and sort of purposefully sort of you know, making the Scottishness really, really obvious, when it's like, well, you're just next to this massive beautiful castle with an amazing loch. You don't need it kind of spelt out, perhaps. And it's really about thinking, you know, we can't go back and change the beginning, but we can change where you are and change the ending. You know, C.S. Lewis, did he say that? Probably not. And thinking about our sources of information are very, very quick. And we really need to think about geography and that high quality geography. And yes, there is a specification, but are we teaching high quality geography, or are we teaching to the exam? Will our year 11s leave us knowing good quality geography and being able to do well in the exam? Or are they just motivated by the examination? And the most important person in this is that head of geography. We can't whole scale change our curriculum. That would be quite a bit of a mission. However, I hope that we are having those conversations in our departments about how is our current situation fundamentally changing our subject. If it's changing globalization, and if it's changing place, two huge aspects of geography, we need to probably explore those, as well as the climate crisis and as well as everything else that we can do. Thank you very much, and I shall end there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone. Very impressive timekeeping so far. Thank you, Dave. That's really powerful. I'm going away thinking about how the quality of my geography, how high it is. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. I know you're really very busy. Okay, and I don't know, do we have Rebecca Butler online? Is Rebecca there? Because I don't think I've checked in with you. Rebecca, are you there? Oh, you don't. She's not there. Okay, I'm going to move seamlessly on. Charlotte, are you there, and are you okay?
Hello, I'm here.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Can I just, I've said thank you to Charlotte a million times, but I'm going to publicly say a massive thank you to Charlotte, who stepped in at the last moment to do this, and I very, very much appreciate it. So thank you, Charlotte. All over to you.
You're very, very welcome. I'm going to be talking about something slightly different. Rather than exactly what we're doing with geography, I'm going to be looking at it from another angle, actually thinking about how can we bring in more things about diversity and our community into our subject, particularly with the global climate this year, thinking about COVID-19, thinking about the Black Lives Matter protests in the USA, and where we can not necessarily shoehorn that in, but actually make it a nice transition and important for our students. So I want to talk specifically about my context first of all. So I, like Denise, I'm in a school literally down the road from where Denise teaches. We have roughly 90% of our students from South Asian families. We're right on the fringes of East London in Redbridge. We've got a very boy-heavy cohort. It says 53%, but that is very much not quite what it seems when we think we've got more girls in our Key Stage 5 than boys. We've got around 60% boys in years 7 to 11. We've got a lot of students who have English as an additional language, so it's 76%. That's our best guess. We think it's probably more. And we've also got a higher than average number of students with EHCPs. So in terms of diversity, we know the importance of sharing diversity, but where has that kind of been celebrated? So one of the things that we are going to be doing is really thinking about whole school engagement. And this is not coming from myself. This is coming from a phenomenal teacher that I work with, whose name is Samira Hussain, who I'm currently trying to make her have her own Twitter account, because her ideas are phenomenal. And if she does, I will of course direct you in that direction. So some of the things that we're going to be focusing on whole school is the idea about checking our own bias as teachers. Black History Month is a huge thing at the school I work at. We do all kinds of different things. We've looked at things like hair wrapping. We've looked at community engagement. We've had people from the community come in and talk to some of our Black students, particularly older boys, about the importance of being a man, what that looks like, and the fact that it is okay for men to cry. Things like ethnicity, gender, different sexualities, and also different points of view are the things that we're looking at as a whole school community. So we have 4 different C's, is what we're calling them, that we're trying to engage with. First of all, adding this into our curriculum. Secondly, celebrating the diversity within our school community and outside. Challenging our conversations and attitudes. One of the things that we find is there is very much a bias around, or at least a stereotype around young Asian men not necessarily respecting women. Now, is that actually the case, or is that a conversation that needs to be challenged as well? So that's something that we're looking at quite a lot. And something that I'm leading on within school, which is compulsory CPD for staff, about how to check our own bias, how to engage with different things as well. So our current actions in geography, this is what we're doing right at this moment in time, really engaging with what we're calling Beyond Black History Month this year, okay, really thinking beyond what we're doing right now and thinking about the longevity of it. So we've created an amazing GIS project using Google Earth, which was the brainchild of the lovely Sadia, who's on this call today as well, where we're thinking about how countries with predominantly Black populations are showing the rest of the world how it's done. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen some of these stereotypes that I've heard from students over the last couple of years. And part of what we're doing is trying to get our lovely young people to look beyond those stereotypes and to really think about what these countries are doing that's actually epic and we can learn from them. So the example I keep using is Rwanda around plastic bags, and my students have very much taken this on board. So this is very much in its infancy. The deadline for this is the 2nd of November, but we have had a few students complete this. So this student's looked at Guinea-Bissau and is particularly focused again on plastic bags. They are loving the plastic bags, and this is a Year 8 student who's got involved in this. So this is a huge, big project that we're running across the school, and hopefully we'll have different year groups involved as well. So our next steps are the following. Our first thing is to look at is our curriculum audit. Around diversity. For example, are women represented as much as men in our curriculum? We're an all-female department of geography teachers, but quite often we're talking about male voices. So actually making sure that we're involving that as well. Are we framing development and poverty with a neo-colonial eye? Similar to what's just been said, can we actually challenge that? Are we allowing our students to understand these LGBTQ+ identities, and where does that fit in within geography? Where do we allow our students to find their own voices? The next thing we're going to be doing is engaging with the local community. So that's both within Redbridge, but also the geography community as a whole. And that's something that we're going to be engaging with over the next coming few months. And finally, the last thing we're going to be doing is student voice. And this is an example of a Google form that one of my colleagues in our history department sent out to every single history student in the school, asking them to evaluate how much they see themselves in the curriculum. And we're going to do something very similar within geography, thinking about where is it that our students, as I said, majoritively South Asian in ethnicity, see themselves within our curriculum, and if they don't, what can we do going forward? So yeah, that's exactly what we're doing at the moment in regards to community diversity in the geography department at Seven Kings.
That was absolutely brilliant, Charlotte. Thank you so much for taking the time to deliver that. So I know for a fact that my own head of geography is watching, so there's definitely a conversation for us as a department to follow up after that. It was absolutely fascinating. So I'm taking over some presenting duties from Denise now, just as we come to the next three of our speakers. So when he's not going viral on Twitter, Sam is quite often firing off very interesting and controversial threads, one of which I believe he is going to pick up this evening. So Sam, whenever you're ready, it's over to you. I can't hear you, Sam. Are you talking? No, I've not got anything.
It's the mute button. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Right. So here's my thesis. There's been a relatively uncritical acceptance of the knowledge organizer in UK schools. And unfortunately, there are some significant issues with them that I think and believe need wider discussion. So here are the three issues that I think there are. I think there are issues with how they've been applied practically. I think there are issues in their theoretical foundations. And I believe there's issues in the research of their effectiveness. So first up, what is a knowledge organizer? Well, they were proposed in a blog by Joe Kirby, initially when he was at Michaela Community School. And they take the most important knowledge from a topic and put it on one page. This page is designed for self-quizzing, just like the knowledge organizer that's seen here on the screen. Students can use these sheets to self-quiz, and this means that they can use retrieval practice to embed knowledge in their long-term memory. And if you're a fan of cognitive science, then this is a good thing, as long-term memory is the central dominant structure of human cognitive architecture. So it all sounds good on paper, but there are problems. And here is problem one. Now, there's been a proliferation of knowledge organizers that are something like this. I just want to point out that this is not a knowledge organizer. And I don't mean to be offensive there to internetgeography.net. It's nothing personal, but what this is it's a revision sheet with knowledge organizer slapped on the top of it. It's not a structured sheet that's set up for self-quizzing. So why are we in this situation where lots and lots of the knowledge organizers that we see online and that are being shared look like this? Well, quite quickly, the knowledge organizers spread from Joe Kirby's blog, and primarily it was associated with Michaela Community School, where Joe worked, and also with the knowledge movement. Essentially, it was or is the easiest intervention that any classroom teacher or classroom leader can take and apply from Michaela and put it into their own schools. So across the country, there are tons of teachers who've never heard of Joe, who've never heard of Michaela, who've never heard of knowledge organizers, who are being asked to produce them. And the consequence of that is what's been called lethal mutation, where glorified revision sheets have had knowledge organizer slapped on top of them. And we've really kind of moved away massively from the ideas that were put forth first. Now, that's not to blame teachers, but more the point that this is a structural issue and that what knowledge organizers were meant to be and what they were conceived as is very different to how we see them today. Now, the second problem is kind of theoretical. The knowledge organizer organizes knowledge in a list, but the mind is kind of more complex than that. As Oliver points out, we should treat ideas as objects. Our mind relies on complex structures and pathways that link knowledge together. It's not just list after list. We don't just want to learn a bunch of facts. We want students to learn how the facts are associated to each other and their relative merits. Now, a better way of organizing knowledge would be through something like a graphic organizer or through visual spatial displays. And there's a great deal of evidence for these, and they've been talked about by people like Zig Engelman and Frederick Reif. And I'll link some stuff to that in the end of this. So a knowledge organizer isn't particularly helpful for students when we're teaching them new knowledge or when they're looking at knowledge after the lesson. By comparison, these graphic organizers and visual spatial displays are, as they scaffold the thinking of experts for novices. So instead of using these organizers, we should be using graphic organizers, as it will reduce cognitive load during instruction, and it will make it easier for students to retrieve knowledge in the future. The third issue is research. And to my knowledge, and I'm really happy to be corrected on this, but I haven't seen any peer-reviewed studies on knowledge organizers. Lots of schools have adopted this idea without clear evidence that it's an optimal tool for helping students to retrieve knowledge. Is there evidence for the power of long-term memory and retrieval practice? Yes, of course there is. Are knowledge organizers necessarily the best way to embed knowledge into long-term memory? Well, we just don't know yet. And I think there really does need to be further research into this because these knowledge organizers have really proliferated. So to sum up, There are three main issues that I'd associate with knowledge organisers. There's practical, theoretical, and research. And in my view, this is significant. Are these knowledge organisers useless? No. Should we uncritically accept the mandating of their production and base our lessons, curricula, and homework on them? Well, I'll let you decide that for yourselves. If you want any further resources, there's some stuff here on the slides, and I'll also tweet this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. That was really, really interesting to hear from. I remember picking up the initial thread when you tweeted it and kind of thought at the time, actually, what a fantastic and interesting idea it was. And something, as you say, we need to be really careful not to just universally accept everything we're told, particularly via Twitter or kind of what comes through edu Twitter, and actually a bit of kind of critical thought is really important. Sam, I've still got your screen on at the moment. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Thank you. So up next, we have Clary Simpson, who is one of our active members of the Sheffield GA. Clary, are you around and ready to rock and roll?
Hello.
Amazing. Hey, Clary, right, over to you.
Okay, so this is my first ever TeachMeet, so you can probably hear the nerves in my voice. I'm going to talk to you about regeneration in Sheffield. So first and foremost, I'm Clary. I'm a teacher of geography. I am probably a yuppie and certainly a beneficiary of regeneration. So I'm going to talk to you about how it affects our local area, how we teach it, and so on. As I sit here today, I'm sat inside an old brewing tower in Sheffield, in the city centre. It was converted into flats in the early 2000s. My dad, a long-standing supporter of Sheffield United, has drunk many a brewed beer here. So I start by teaching regeneration as part of an urban process of suburbanisation, urbanisation, urban decline, counter-urbanisation, rebranding, regeneration, and then re-urbanisation. And in doing this, I explore a range of topics. I can link this to Key Stage 3 learning, to Key Stage 4 learning, to Key Stage 5 learning. As a school, we're currently focusing on the root, prefix and suffix of words. So thanks, Charlotte, for kind of helping me out with this one. Again, we have a lot of EAL need at our school. So we're able to use the prefix and suffixes to help our kids kind of work out what these words mean. I know Ben Ransom has done a lot of this on Twitter, and he's quite easy to reach. So do shout him out for that. Again, I'm always happy to chat about words at any time. Just contact me on Twitter. So looking at how urban areas grew in the UK really relies on us having a kind of historical view of things. So I start by looking at the Industrial Revolution, which I guess was only made possible due to our exploits through the empire. I look at mass migration, and it often shocks and surprises my students to hear that their great-great-grandparents were probably economic migrants. And urbanisation doesn't happen just in the UK, and it's not a recent phenomenon. So it's nice to kind of link this to global areas that are urbanising at the moment and our views of them. Suburbanisation comes next in our urbanisation journey. It's an opportunity to really break down what the implications of this move from the periphery of cities really is. I think asking who is moving is important when looking at the distinctions between the suburbs and urban areas. American geographers often talk about white flight or white collar flight, as well as how technology and transport has enabled people to work in the city but live in the suburbs. There's an opportunity here to talk about income groups and class and what happens when high income, high class people move away from the city. A criminologist called James Wilson theorised in the 80s that visible signs of decline and deprivation can create an environment in which criminal behaviour can occur. He called this the broken window theory. And this, of course, is iterative of an environment that has little social investment, which, of course, leads to lower house prices and encourages a negative multiplier effect. Of course, then we move on to counter-urbanisation, who's moving out and what impact that has on our green belt. Thanks to Dan for mentioning that as well. It's again asking who does this affect and how is this affecting our region. Obviously, some of you might have come to Meadow Hall if you've been so lucky. The proliferation of out-of-town centres kind of adding to that demise of the urban area. Rebranding, remarketing, and so on, linking that to our A-level. And then eventually we move on to looking at regeneration. Where is it happening? Who is it happening to? How far? We look at the two-speed economy, and then who is left behind. When we look at reurbanisation, we look at the groups that are kind of under tension as a result of this, what impact that then has on house prices and the identity of regions. Regeneration can be quite an exclusionary process. I spoke at the start about how I was a beneficiary of regeneration, but there are many who are not. I teach in a school which is right between the Tinsley and Orgreave collieries. As I leave my part of the city full of yuppie coffee shops whose names refer to steelworking, I soon arrive in a place that's scarcely recovered from its industrial past. These people are priced out of regeneration, something I remind myself of when exploring it with them. So how do I teach it then? Of course, we can use images. Here you can see images of the Moor in Sheffield, our kind of high street. See how it changes from a busy car populated area to then a pedestrianised area. There's David Blunkett planting a tree to the eventual pedestrianisation of the area. Another way you can look at how urban areas have changed is through land use surveys. Again, using images. There's my block of flats there, Ward's Brewery, old brewing tower, but also by looking at how these urban areas have changed and regenerated over time. I'm yet to find old maps like Google Maps where you can map on top of each of the land use, but if anybody has got those, I'd love to see those. Again, storytelling. These are the Park Hill estates, an area branded as one of the most successful regeneration projects of the 2000s. You could also do environmental quality surveys, which work really well at the desk, especially under COVID scenarios where we have to do kind of distance field work. You can easily pick those up on the FSC website. Another really good website is called On This Spot, where you can see how urban areas have changed over time through like a sliding scale. I've linked that on there as well. Poetry, art and music, another way that we can explore how regeneration has shaped our area and see a range of voices on that. Tariq Jazeel spoke about this on the GAE conference, and I've put the link on there so you can hear someone that's probably a little bit more qualified than me talking about this. So to summarise then, regeneration is part of a big process. There are winners and losers, and there are a range of methods for teaching. So thank you for listening. I'm sure you've got lots of questions. Please either tweet me or put them in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clary, for your time and your contribution this evening. That's absolutely fascinating. So as a resident of the Sheffield myself, it's always wonderful to hear people exploring and talking about our wonderful city. That was brilliant. And considering your first time, that was amazing. We're down to our last speaker of the evening, and we're going to try Brendan's video a little bit after that. So I'm going to hand over now to Abdurrahman Perez, who's going to be taking over now. Abdu, whenever you're ready, it is over to you.
Hi guys, thanks Tom. I just want to speak to you briefly this afternoon. Like Tom has just said, I'm Abdi, I'm head of geography at the school in South West London. Tom, can you just check, is the screen showing?
Yeah, I've got it, perfect.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry for the rather clunky title. I thought maybe doing away with one of these rows would have been a bit useful, but this is all about rigorous and meaningful accountable reading using BDA. BDA stands for before, during and after, and it's basically to ensure that we're doing, when we're doing reading and whenever we get the chance to do reading at Key Stage 3, 4 or 5 in geography, that it is actually purposeful and we're doing it for a reason. We're not just chucking a text at pupils. So why are we doing it? I'll just read through a few of these reasons. I've left a link there at the bottom of a recent TES article on a EEF report concerning about how reading is one of the best ways in which we can catch children up post COVID-19 and in terms of the gaps that may have caused. So, but in relation to geography, reading about the world is central to geographers' search for an understanding of the world. They can only understand the world and its human and physical processes if they read about it. Reading is also an excellent opportunity to improve people's vocabulary. It builds cultural capital, which we all know is very, very important to children, both generally, but also in relation to their understanding of geography's concepts. It also builds resilience. The more you read, the less scary children find reading, specifically reading maybe exam questions that you do AQA, for example, can sometimes be quite, how do I say it, quite clunkily phrased, and the meaning of them is not so clear. But the more children read, the more they'll be able to decipher things like that. And it's also an opportunity to influence pupils' fluency. And often if a child can read well, especially if they can read out loud well, then it builds their oracy in general in terms of how they can speak. So what are the challenges? There are a lot of challenges when we're doing reading across schools, but specific to geography, we have the tier 3 vocabulary, which children, by the very nature of the fact that it's tier 3, are not exposed to in their everyday lives. So words like eccentricity, atmospheric circulation, quaternary period, they've just never heard of those things outside of our classrooms. And they have to both read them and understand them in a text that might be full of several of these kinds of words. We then get down into the exam questions. So those two that you can see in a slightly smaller font are real questions. Some of you will recognize that changing places question. It looks like a nightmare of a question. It's 54 words long. And that Key Stage 4 question, that year 11 question, is 24 words long. And not easy to understand even now, perhaps if you don't teach these topics or you don't teach the exam board, let alone if you're a 16-year-old child, let alone if you're in an exam hall and feeling the pressure. There's also an issue of students just skim reading text, and that might be something that we can sort of slightly blame ourselves for, because we're getting them to look for these facts and figures for their 9 markers or their 20 markers or their 6 markers. And so they might not really get the depth of the text and what it's actually trying to get across. And then there's, again, an issue with resilience, and cultural capital builds a little bit of a vicious cycle. They don't know about something and therefore get confused, and then they don't read about this certain concept or topic, and therefore they don't learn about it, and it cycles around and around, unfortunately. So this is what it used to look like for me, and I think this is what it might look like in some of the schools of people here. With year 12 and 13, it's look at this article, go read it and make some notes before the lesson. With Key Stage 3, here's something that we're going to read. I'd like you to read along with me, and you're just going to highlight. Now, what you highlight, I don't really know. You might just turn this into something that is a multicolored, sort of rainbow full of all different highlighters, and it might not have any meaning behind it. And then with Key Stage 4, I don't do this so much, but I know it happens in a lot of other schools where it might be, read a set of pages and then answer some questions on it. Not, sometimes needed. Sometimes they do need to read a textbook. Sometimes they do just need to read an article for a lesson, but not as rigorous as we can make it. And here's where BDA comes in. So BDA, like I said, stands for before, during, and after. And it's part of a practice called reciprocal reading, where there are 4 main strategies. The children predict, they question, they clarify, and then they summarize. But I just want to read this bit here. You can read all of this, I'm sure, when Tom and Denise share our slides, the bit that's colored here. So this mental framework is begun before reading even begins. So I'll show you that in my template in a second. It's strengthened as students actually interact with the text during the reading, so they don't just mindlessly read, they either do something or answer something during reading. And then it's reflected upon after reading, as students can incorporate what they've just read into their core knowledge and think about either how it adds to their knowledge or how maybe it challenges through it. But like I said, this I can leave on here for you to read later. I just wanted to show you, because I'm conscious of time, what I've done in terms of templates. So again, these are just some ideas of what you could do. I'm glad actually David earlier on mentioned that COVID-19 and globalization article, because I actually did give that to my 6th formers earlier this year, and I tried to do something along with it. So I'm glad that's a bit of a call back to that. So this is what the template looks like. This one here is one for the first lesson back with year 11. Obviously, we'd had lockdown, so I just wanted to get them reading straight away. Start changing economic world, but also link back to urban issues and challenges. And when you see my these slides later, you'll see how there was a link to both of these. This one was year 11 covering the causes of uneven development. I just scanned 2 bits from a chapter of Prisoners of Geography, which I'm sure many of you have read, added some questions, and it was really, really powerful. I actually gave this both to year 9 students and to year 11 students, and both found it really useful. This one was first lesson with year 12, like David already mentioned this article, this one about coronavirus and globalization, but again, same template. And this one all credit to this one goes to Mr. Hand from Twitter. I've just taken his lovely guided reading template and I've turned it into a before, during, and after template. So hopefully you found that useful. I'll hand back over to you, Tom. Thanks.
Thanks, Abdi. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Really, really helpful. I love the examples you shared with us at the end there as well. Denise, I believe it's over to you. You're going to try Brendan's video.
Yes, I'm going to try one more time. Yeah, so just hang on one moment. Brendan, if you're there, if this doesn't work, are you going to attend?
Yeah, if it doesn't work, I've got these headphones on, so I can just do it live.
Okay,
They can cut out the sound.
Brilliant. Let me just see if I can do it. Is it sharing? Oh dear, I'm not sure it is. I don't think it's working. It's not showing the thing on the screen. Can you try it, Brendan? Is that all right?
Yep. Okay.
Sorry.
We'll try the other way.
I'm going to keep my mic on and tell you whether it's working.
Right. Can you see that screen?
Not sharing yet. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, we've got
now.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good.
Yeah.
And can you hear me all right?
Let's see. No, stop playing again. Oh,
can you hear me talking through this thing?
Yes.
So let's do that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Let's do it. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. Well, very brief introduction. My name is Brendan and I teach geography in Surrey. I'm also a PGCE tutor at St Mary's University in Twickenham. So I'm just going to share some ideas about using GIFs. So first of all, here's an example of one. I found it and shared it and added value to it a few months ago, and a lot of people found it quite useful for A-level. I'd really like to call them GeoGIFs, and I didn't come up with that word. It was Alistair Ray, professor at University of Sheffield, and he's come up with a lot of these GeoGIFs, but quite often they look quite entertaining, but you want to have some way of using them in your lessons. So what I discovered was that if you play cards right, you can actually put various things over them. So I added value to them by putting numbers on them and getting students to really think deeply about what was going on at each location. You're seeing them quite quickly, but we'd actually look at them one at a time. And then I found during lockdown, they were a particularly good way of enabling the students to carry on thinking deeply, even when I couldn't see them because we were doing the lesson through Teams or as a follow-up. They would carry on thinking deeply. So the scaffolding I provide with this sort of thing here, and maybe some extension work as well. So I'm going to show you a few examples of how we can use this term with our GCSE and or A-level groups using GeoGIFs. So the first one is to do with a river in Surrey and flowing through London Borough of Kingston, which is the River Hogsmill. So we started by doing some work with ArcGIS Online to map the area. And for follow-up, we created a GIF of the layers that you can see. You can see these layers working here with numbers on them. And this is stepping the whole thing. You can do that really easily with GIS to make sure you respect the cognitive load. So what we've got here is several points on the river. And one of the key points about it is that, as one of the students asked, why is the source of the river, number 4, right in the middle of the catchment? Shouldn't it be further south towards the edge of the catchment? By the way, that catchment area you can see there was generated, the students generate that in ArcGIS Online using the analysis tools. We put the geology layer on, this brown green layer, and it shows that it's because it's a springline settlement. So this is Ewell in Surrey, where the Hogsmill starts, and the layer of chalk you can see here, the green layer is permeable, but the brown layer, the clay, isn't. So there are lots of underground rivers around here flowing through the chalk from Epsom down into Ewell. So that's part of the powerful geography you can generate by using GIFs. Once again, scaffolded it, give them a follow-up task in this sort of way here. On that river, there's been quite a lot of engineering, as there has been on lots of rivers in London. Dan was talking about that earlier on. And one of the schemes going on for the National Park City is to try to put the life back into some of these cities. So, for example, this river here has got weirs on it. It's been heavily engineered. And some rivers in London... I can hear somebody else.
No.
Yep.
Hang on.
Oh, someone's got their mic unmuted, so I'm not sure. Oh, I don't think it is though.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
So these weirs are just an example of the engineering that's gone on lots of the tributaries of the River Thames, and you could probably find a river anywhere near your school that's got this kind of usefulness. And what's been happening is that some of these rivers have actually been unengineered, or they've installed soft engineering instead. So we're looking at an example of one of those here, and this is another stretch just similar to the photo you saw. Once again, it's a GeoGIF. And in this case, what you can see is the before and after section along the river. This is in London Borough of Kingston. So once again, what we've done is we've highlighted some key points on this before and after GIF so that students can really think deeply about what's going on at each of these locations. This could be particularly useful perhaps for unfamiliar field work. It could be useful for the NEA as well. So as you can see, the gift that keeps on giving, it keeps on turning around, and you can really think about what's going on at each of these locations, scaffold their thinking so that afterwards in the follow-up task, they're thinking about what's going on at each of these locations just here. And what's actually gone on in general is that they removed the weir. We showed them a time lapse that the Hogsmill River Trust put together of actually doing that. So this is the follow-up GIF of that. And what they did after they removed the weir was they put the bends back into the river, graded the bank, and did various other things. So you may have heard the phrase re-wiggling. This is an example of river restoration. So when I first started teaching about river restoration, this was something that only happened in far remote places like Ennerdale in the Lake District. Now it's going on actually, in quite a lot of urban areas. So it's worth looking around, see the rivers in your area and see, well, what is going on? Can you actually do some field work on those rivers and use the GIF idea as a very good way to help the students keep on thinking using these images that somebody said that they're a little bit like the images in Harry Potter films, they kind of living pictures. So that's just the technique to share with you. So I hope that's okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Brendan. That's brilliant. Really, really useful. I was literally just taking a photograph of that image at the end there. That's a really useful way of organising a worksheet or an activity for students. Thank you so much. Well, I think so I will speak on behalf of Tom, but I think we can pronounce ourselves having successfully done what the government has failed to do: join the North and the South, bring us together. Also at the same time going out live to the nation on YouTube. It's been fantastic. It's just been so nice in these uncertain times and rather strange times to just talk about geography with a load of people who also want to talk about geography. So thank you so very much. Thank you to all the presenters giving up your time. Loads of people on here, loads of people who are really busy as well, putting together presentations, speaking so well and helping us. Look out for further events and joint participations, and I think it's a good moment to have a quick shout out for Tom and I at the GA conference. Who'll be talking about our joint endeavours and our hubs and working with local geographers to try and do what we love doing, talking about geography and spreading the word about geography in the classroom. Tom, are you there to say a closing few words?
I think, Denise, to be fair, you've done a pretty stellar job of closing us out tonight.
One try.
Just to echo your thoughts there, thank you so much to all of our speakers. Like, in many ways, actually, it's kind of the easy part for us, really, to put kind of the logistics together. And actually, you worry and you panic, and then you get the amazing speakers that we've got. I know that I'm definitely going to have to rewatch the YouTube link just so I can actually make sure that I can able to sit back and properly take notes now that I know things have gone smoothly. But please keep tweeting about it. Please just keep posting anything you find. Please interact with the speakers. Every one of them is more than happy to share and kind of talk through their ideas. They're a brilliant, generous, wonderful bunch.
And I will try and put together all the presentations, etc., and share with everybody. And yeah, just chuck in the chat anything you want to say to finish off. If there's anything you want to ask, comment on, or just say a very nice thank you and goodbye. Fantastic.